Do you find it hard to explain to friends and family what you now do? Are you wasting valuable time by attempting to figure out challenges on your own? We have created a community for ex-corporate people running their own business who want to live a life they love whilst giving back to their community. This is the Build, Live, Give show. We bring you first-hand experiences of guests going through many of the struggles you face each and every day. We get real with no corporate BS. And now your host, Paul Higgins.
Welcome to the Build, Live, Give show. I'm Paul Higgins and I'm your show host. And today I'm very excited to have Fred Duku Silver from the Shining Snow Flake Foundation. He is really like no other guest that I've had on the program. And he's not an ex-corporate person, but he's got an amazing story. And actually, I've never met or spoken to anyone like Fred. So it's just got an amazing story. He started as a refugee in a refugee camp in Uganda. At 11, he came to Australia and he knew one word, which was the word yes, and that got him into a world of trouble. And he got on the other side of that. Now he does law and business. And instead of just stopping there, he's gone on to create his own foundation, the Shining Snow Flake Foundation. And he's just got an amazing story. So you're going to absolutely love this podcast. What's been happening, the community continues to grow. So the community was built up from my own itch, which was leaving large corporate, building my own business and just not having a peer group or a support group to help me in my journey. Also in living a great life and giving back to the community. So you can find out more at buildlivegive.com. And also, if you love Fred's episode, which I'm sure you will, please subscribe to the episode and listen to other podcasts or other shows. And also, we'd love to get a 5-star review from you on the podcast so we can start to spread not just Fred's word, but also other people that have contributed to this fantastic movement, the Build, Live, Give community. So what I'll do now is hand you over to Fred from the Shining Snow Flake Foundation. But before we dive into today's show, leaving corporate to run your own business can be extremely hard and lonely. You start off in a euphoric state, and at some point you look at your cash flow and start to doubt your abilities. What you learn in corporate doesn't always translate, and you are bombarded every day with new challenges. Learning something yourself is okay, but it can be both timely and costly. Friends and family want to help, but they don't have the specific experiences you need. This is why we created the Build, Live, Give community, a free community with hundreds of people just like you answering questions and sharing real experiences, and definitely no spam. This, coupled with weekly interviews on hot topics, will help you expedite success. Search for the Build, Live, Give group in Facebook and answer the 3 questions to gain access. Anyway, enough from me. Now it's time to hand you over to one of the BLG members to hear their wonderful journey. Welcome, Fred Duku Silver, to the Build, Live, Give show. We're very excited to have you on, Fred. I know you'll be a little different to some of our guests that we've had on previously because you haven't had a corporate background to small business, but I know you've got a brilliant story to tell us. So why don't you just start with a little bit about your background, and then we can get into more about your cause as we go through the interview.
I'm humbled to be here, Paul, and I'm actually surprised because you managed to say my middle name right. So it's Duku, like you said, but sometimes people say Duku, from Star Wars Count Duku, and so I'm I got the force, so may the force be with you. Hashtag Count Duku. So a little bit about me is I was born in a refugee camp in Uganda. But I'm originally a South Sudanese, and I came to Australia in 2007. And like you mentioned, yes, I don't have a corporate background, but at the same time, I believe my story is worth sharing when you're talking about BLG.
Yeah, great. And tell me what was the circumstances in your home country, and what sort of led to you moving and migrating to Australia?
Oh, okay. So I was born in Uganda because back in the 90s or back in the late 80s, when conflict was taking place in my home country in South Sudan, my parents had to flee to Uganda to seek asylum in a refugee camp. So I was born in a refugee camp in Uganda, and I lived there for over 10 years. And sometimes people ask me, Fred, how do you live in that environment? But I believe, a fish is the last person to know that they are in the water. But when you get them out of the water, they'll be like, oh, okay. So that's where I was. Yeah, so for me, living in the refugee camp, like I didn't really know that there were things which were better until we came to Australia, and then I was exposed to different kind of environment. Yeah, but to answer your question, we came to Australia because the condition there wasn't really the best, and my parents wanted to provide their children with a safe haven, a place where they can, develop and become, their best self.
Great. And the journey of getting to Australia, like how difficult or easy was it to get actually into Australia for your parents at the time? I don't know if you can remember back to that.
Yes, it wasn't. I would have to say it wasn't easy. And the reason why I say that is because it took my dad more than 3 years to actually get a refugee visa for us to come to Australia. And so every time when he applied, and that's one thing I like about him, and I believe that's one thing I learned from him, and it's in my DNA as well, like that determination to keep going. Because in that environment, there's a lot of people, applying for those kind of opportunities to come to lands like Australia, the US, or New Zealand, or whatever. But it took my dad 3 years because, the process is a really long process. And sometimes when things are going, good, Murphy's Law tend to happen. So, anything that can happen will happen. But my dad never really gave up.
Great. And do you still have family back in Uganda?
Yes, I do. I still have my cousins and some of my relatives back there, but they're doing much better than they were before. And at the ending of this year, I'm planning on traveling back.
Great. And when you go back there, like, is there ever any risk of not being able to get back out to the country? So, I know these are sort of naive questions in a way, but I've never spoken to someone in your situation. So how easy is it to go back into Uganda and then come back out again?
It's not really too hard, but at the same time, there are times when, the unexpected things happen. Yeah, so, but it's not really too hard for me to come back to Australia because at the moment I'm also an Australian citizen.
Yes.
Yeah, so I have a dual citizenship.
Great, excellent. And what's something that so I know you've got a brilliant, colourful background, which we're going to find out more about. But what's something that your family or friends know about Fred that the BLG listeners wouldn't?
I would have to say one thing they know about me, and from my early life stages, is that I'm really, and I think some people will pick it up along the way as well, is that I'm really curious. So when I used to live in the refugee camp, most of my family members wouldn't know where I was, and so sometimes I used to go out in the world and probably come back home when the sun is going down, or at times when the sun is setting down. And so my brothers would ask me, Fred, where are you going, and where were you? And I'll just tell them, sometimes we need to go out in the world and discover new places. And so I believe that curiosity is instilled in me. And so now whenever I go somewhere, I like trying new things and meeting new people, just like yourself, and learning new things as well.
Excellent. And take me to, what some of the things that you did see when you went on those expeditions. What did you see that others may not have?
I would have to say the different ways of seeing life. So most of the time, like even though I saw a lot of things, what I like the most is what the people what I learned from the people I met along the way. So sometimes you may go to a new place and then you meet a new people, like a new person over there. And I don't know who said this, but someone once said that everyone you meet has something you need to learn. And so for me, whenever I go out, in the world, I do see a lot of things, but at the same time, what I like more is the people that I meet, and like the things I learn from them. And at times, what that tends to happen is it becomes a part of me. And so nowadays, whenever I go out in the world or when I travel to different countries, like even now in Australia, I do a lot of traveling to other different places. And I mean, I've seen a lot of beautiful views, a lot of beautiful temples and things which I wouldn't be, in the same place. But at the same time, what I like more is building the relationship with the people I meet along the way.
And I can definitely, talking to you previous to this, that free spirit and that curiosity comes out very strongly. And if you look at when your family first arrived, so what age were you when your family first arrived?
So when my family arrived, I was 21 years old. No, not 21, 11 years old.
11. I was going to say, I thought you were a bit younger than that. So 11 years old. So what can you remember the help that you and the family got when you first came into Australia? What sort of help did you get?
We got we actually got really a lot of help, and I'm grateful. And some of those help include basically transport. So there were people who contributed their time to taking us to different places around, around the area that I live. And so thanks to those kind of people, even in me right now, whenever I see new people or when I see someone in need, and I believe that's where most of the things I do come in. So whenever I see someone in need, I can relate to them because I know how it feels, to be in their shoes, not particularly in what they're doing, but just that feeling. And so most of the help have been people just being generous to us, and just looking in their eyes and knowing that they care.
Excellent. Yeah. And did you have family, or did you have any family here or any other friends when you guys arrived?
Yes, I had several cousins here, but at the same time there were a lot of new people that we met. Which so when we came here, there were a couple of familiar faces we knew back from where we used to live. But beside that, there were so many different people. And the funny thing was, my little brother and I, we were enrolled in an all Caucasian school. And so at times we ended up getting into trouble because firstly, we couldn't speak the language, English. And it's funny, whenever I speak and whenever I get invited to speak at different schools or conferences, I always tell the story that when I came to Australia, the only word I knew was the word yes. So whenever someone asked for my name, I would just say, yes to everyone. I would just nod my head. And then there was this girl. I didn't know what she was saying back then, but she actually asked me out. But because I didn't know what she was saying, I ended up saying yes to it. And then she started following me everywhere.
So you had a girlfriend, but you didn't know it.
Exactly.
Excellent. And I know, through your story, going to hear a little bit more about your background, but what was, take me to some of those moments when it was difficult around fitting into a Caucasian school. What were some of the incidents that you experienced?
Yeah, I would have to say, to be honest, there were a lot of amazing people I met, but most of the incidents which I came across were mostly racial abuse. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so basically what happened was, if you put Fred in this school, the school becomes multicultural. If you take him out, the school doesn't become multicultural. So the fact that I'm in that school, it doesn't matter, if I'm 100 meters away, people will know who that is. And so at times, we were racially abused, and sometimes some of the students would go to physical abuse and all of those kind of things. And for me, I couldn't tell them to stop because I couldn't speak the language. But at the same time, I couldn't tell, I couldn't report it to the teachers because I wouldn't know how to say it to them. And the only people who I could talk to and tell them that I was being bullied was my parents. But my parents were going through, like the same thing, which was trying to fit into a new environment. And so I didn't want to put on that extra pressure on them. And because of that, I ended up getting into a lot of fights, a lot of trouble. And so when I was in grade 10, I ended up getting into a huge fight. And as a result of that, the school which I went to told me that the following year I'm not allowed to come back to that school. But since there was only 2 weeks of school left for the year, and I can finish it, but the following year I'm not allowed to go back there.
Right. So what did you do the following year?
No, like my parents, when it happened, my parents were really devastated. And I believe at a young age, the worst thing that you can see is your parents being sad. And it is even worse when you're the reason behind it. So the following year, what I ended up doing was I was enrolled in a new school. And in that school, I decided that education was important because I wasn't just doing it for myself, but I was doing it for, my family, my future family, and for those people who believed in me and those individuals who get inspired by my story. And the beautiful thing was that the new school which I went to started exposing me to new environments. And one of them was they took us to a university to see how life at university was. This was when I was in grade 12. They took us to university. And what they ended up doing was taking us to the law faculty. And so at the moment, I'm studying a Bachelor of Law and Business. And when people ask me why I'm studying law, I tell them that, I believe if you live in a certain society, it's wise to know the law you're governed by. And I mean, that sounds smart. But the real reason is because when my school took us to, explore Uni Day to see how life at uni was like, and they took us to the law faculty, I saw that there was a lot of hot girls in law. So I'm like, I want to study law after I finish high school.
I was lucky they didn't take you to the nursing facility. That's normally more so, but yeah. Look, I'm sure that was one reason, but not the central reason. But tell me, you're obviously studying law and business, which is brilliant, but you've got a real cause that you're passionate about outside of your day-to-day studies. Tell me, what it is and how you came up with the concept.
Yeah, so beside my studies, and I believe my studies is just about 30% of the things that I do. And so the other 70% includes me traveling to different schools, events, and conferences to basically inspire and empower people to see the world from a different perspective. Because I believe it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what you like, who you love, you have a unique story, and someone out there needs to hear it. And their life may change, because you told your story with them. And so nowadays, I get messages from people saying how I'm motivating and inspiring them, and how they're inspiring and empowering other people because of me. And whenever I receive those kind of messages, I really feel humbled by it, because it shows me that when you put your mind to a certain goal, at the end of the day, good things will happen. And sometimes, if you share your story with other people, like maybe it won't change like that person's life, but that individual may end up sharing your story with one of the people they know, like maybe their family, friends, or their family members, and that will, have a huge impact on them. And so for me, sometimes I get messages from people in the form. Actually, there was this one Caucasian kid, right, who was being bullied in school. And so when I shared my story with him, like on their assembly, he ended up getting in contact with me through social media, and he told me that he was thinking of suicidal thoughts and all of those kind of things. But my story, like helped him to shift his mindset.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And when you get up and talk in front of people and you're inspiring them, as you're inspiring our listeners listening to this today, what is your key message, and what is your key focus at the moment?
Now, my key my key message is one of them is just knowing that you don't have to be perfect. Like I believe we don't talk about it, but I believe there's a stigma behind it. And what we tend to do is we tend to compare ourselves with the person next to us, or like someone who we see is doing amazing things. But I believe each and every single one of us have different journeys, and we're going towards different destinations. And at the end of the day, you may see someone being like they may seem like that they're successful in what they do, and everybody would love them. But at the same time, you don't really know like their journey, where they came from. So for me, sometimes when people like get excited, or whenever they're like, "Oh, Fred, you're really good at speaking," I tell them, it wasn't always like this. I have been doing what I'm doing for over 2 years now, and now people are just saying, like, I believe this is the start for me. So the past 2 years was like warm up. And so this is the start for me. And I believe I'll just keep going from here and just going into new heights. So in that regard, my main message is we don't have to be perfect and we don't have to be great to get started, but we have to get started to be great.
And who are the key people that you help? Who are the people that you inspire and help?
Most of the people, and when I began, most of the people who I focused on were like high school students and young people in general. But one thing was I found out that if like you share your life story with people, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who it is. Like it doesn't matter how old they are. At the end of the day, they tend to get inspired. So in that regard, I can't really put a demographic about it, like demographic on it, because there have been other people and people who are way older than me in regards to their wisdom and their age, who have gotten in contact with me and who admire what I'm doing. And some of them are actually referring me to their children as well, or their grandchildren. And so I inspire, like I believe my story inspires people from like from primary or state school up to top executives. And one highlight for me about two months ago was that the general manager of Westpac Bank, his name is Andy Fell, got in contact with me and asked if he could share my story on his LinkedIn to basically inspire the people on his network too. So I believe there isn't really one demographic who gets inspired. And that's the beautiful thing. If you start sharing your story with people, you don't know who you're going to inspire, and you don't know whose life you're going to change.
And what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've faced personally as you've gone through this journey?
I would have to say, I didn't know anyone who was doing what I wanted to do. And as much as I believe we all need someone who we can relate to, sometimes you have to just go out in the world and maybe find your way and maybe make the way for other people. And there may be ups and downs, but at the end of the day, you may eventually see the light at the end of the tunnel. And for me, I have to say that when I decided that I wanted to do what I am doing now, like I couldn't see anyone who was doing it, like not in the regards that, I mean, there's a lot of people who are inspiring people, but at the same time, not at my age, and not a kid who was born in a refugee camp getting expelled at my age, who I don't know anyone. Like if you do, or if any of the listeners do, please refer them to me. But I didn't know anyone who was doing what I'm doing with my type of background. So I'll have to say that was my biggest challenge. And just trying to pave the way out there and connect with different people, like amazing people like yourself, for example. So I have to say those are my biggest challenge. That is my biggest challenge.
And what does, once you finish your law and business degree, which I know you said is about 30% of what you do, once you finish that, what, I don't know, fast forward 3 years, 5 years, what does Fred's life look like in 3 to 5 years' time?
Okay, so I'll tell you what it will definitely not look like. Most people are asking me, what kind of, when I tell them that I'm studying law, they ask me what kind of lawyer I want to be. But at the end of the day, I don't really want to be a lawyer. I mean, I may end up practicing it for about, let's say 2 or 3 years to get the practical aspect of it. But what I will mainly be doing will be, and I can't put my finger on it because there are sometimes when things tend to change along the way. But what I see myself doing is on the path of business. And the other thing which I forgot to mention is that I'm also a co-founder and a director and the current president of the Shining Snow Flake. And so our vision with the Shining Snow Flake initiative is to provide a long-lasting solution to successfully eliminate homelessness. And at the moment, we have been able to connect with so many different people and community centers. And even now, like in Brisbane here, we have been able to partner up with Queensland TAFE. So one of the biggest educational providers in Queensland. And they're going to help us along this pathway of actually, giving homeless individuals a chance to make their own change. And our vision is a homeless-free world. And after I graduate, I see myself continuing on with the Shining Snow Flake. But when things change, it may be along the way of business, or I may be traveling back to my home country and help there wherever I can.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I think the Shining Snowflake, what I understand of it is that the people that don't have a career or pathway necessarily find themselves in trouble, you actually help them build houses and build communities that they then live in to get a more stable life, and then teach them some brilliant life habits so that they can actually, I suppose, become valuable citizens of our community. And to me, that's a brilliant way of you giving back based on your journey where, like you said, you came here from nothing. I should say. You got yourself in a bit of trouble because of language and what have you, and took the path of if I can't speak, I'll physically look after myself, which is understandable. Got expelled, went through all that journey, but now you're actually on a brilliant path forward. So I think the Shining Snowflake, from what I understand, is actually helping people like you to actually, to get that support and actually become really important parts of our society. Is that right, Fred? Have I summed it up right, or what am I missing in my summation there?
No, and I believe that's the thing. Like you mentioned with my story, I can relate to these individuals to a certain extent. I mean, we have different backgrounds, but just that feeling, of being isolated in society. And for me, people didn't give us handout when we came to Australia, but they gave us a handout to get out of our situation. And so we can see, like the other opportunities out in the world. And that's what we want to do with the Shining Snowflake. We don't want to give these individuals like handout. And we see a lot of charities, companies, and ventures focusing on the short term of homelessness, but no one is really providing a long-lasting solution. And so at the end of the day, you hit the nail right on point, because we don't really want to be giving these individuals handout, but as much as we want to give them a handout to get out of their situation and make sure that they're in a stable like path to actually getting from where they are to where they want to be, to what they can achieve, to who they can help. And I believe the beautiful thing is that, just like me, if we are able to, help these individuals to get from where they were to where they want to be, at the end of the day, they will end up sharing their story with other people who were in their shoes, and that will also inspire them, because I believe if one person can do something, it means you can too, and especially when you can relate to that person, and if that individual was in your shoes and they have been there and they have done that, but now they're doing all of these other amazing things with the help of the Shining Snowflake. Like that will also inspire other people, who are in that position to actually get out of it.
Excellent. And if, the BLG listeners, for many of us, we've been very lucky. We've had great corporate backgrounds, and now we're running our own businesses, and, life's fairly good. But I know there's others out here that do know, people that aren't as fortunate. And I know that you, as you said, work with the homeless all the time. How could people help and support the Shining Snowflake Institute? What could a BLG listener listening today, what could they do to support your cause?
And I'll have to say there's different ways of supporting us, but the main way is just being your genuine self, and just contributing, like doing the little you can to I believe everyone can make a difference. It doesn't matter how small it is. You can contribute to a homeless free visa. And so if you want to help in regards to the Shining Snowflake, feel free to get in contact with us through our website. And Paul, if you can do them a favor and actually put a link to the Shining Snowflake on your after this podcast, that would be brilliant. And that link is that link is www.theshiningsnowflake.com.
Excellent. No, look, I'll definitely have that in the show notes, and we'll reference that. And what's your advice, Fred? I'm often in CBD. I live in Melbourne, go in the city, and we've done some work with Salvation Army, helping the homeless on key nights.
Mm-hmm.
So White Night, for example. So we went in with my daughter, and we volunteered and helped some of the homeless. But it was, to be honest, hadn't had much to do with the homeless. So it was really an eye opener for me. But for those people that walking and seeing homeless people in the street, what's the best way to approach and support them? What's your recommendation that people, average people like you, myself, walking down the street, what should they do to help a homeless person they see?
I believe to help, let's say, a homeless person, right? Because I believe it doesn't matter who you are, if you're homeless, if you're a billionaire or a millionaire or whatever, like at the end of the day, you're still a human. And how humans, relate to each other is by sharing our story. You know what I mean? So there are times when, we can't give things to the homeless individuals, and we don't want to encourage them. We don't want to keep, giving them handouts. But maybe one thing we can do, and I did this last year as well. Like I was just walking down the street, like I had nothing on me, but I saw a homeless person sitting down, and there were like over 50 people passing by. This was in the CBD, over 50 people passing by every minute. And so what I decided to do was go and sit with that individual and basically communicate with them, and we exchanged our story. And afterwards, what he told me before I left was that like that was the highlight of his week. It was like, yes, he's been able to collect this much money and blah blah blah. But the fact that I went and sat with him, it made him feel like a human again. And that's like, for me, that was all striking. Like that was deep, because I didn't give him anything in return, but he told me what I gave him was the opportunity for him to express himself. And I believe that's what we need to do. Like if you can, contribute one way or another, like the best way you can contribute is basically taking a quick sip, let's say 5 minutes or 2 minutes to actually talk to this individual. Because like I mentioned earlier, everyone you meet has something, you can learn. It doesn't matter if, the poor, the rich, like if they're younger than you or older than you, or if they hold opposing view on life. Yeah, I believe that's in that regards, I believe that's what we can do.
Yes, and I know I experienced that firsthand with the people on that white night, where they just generally did want to talk and tell their story, and I think that's so powerful. And so often we get caught up in our own world. And I know certainly for me, I was in the city yesterday, and I'm rushing around meeting clients, and I just get so focused on me that if I took that 5 minutes to do what you said, that the positive impact that it have on the individual, but I think as you've said, the impact it's got on you. So I think that's brilliant advice. And anything else you want to mention about the Shining Snowflake initiative before we go into the last section, which is a little more punchy around the take action section?
Okay. I would have to say, there are some times when we don't know how we can contribute to a certain cause, and homelessness has been, an issue which we have been dealing with, like the society has been dealing with for a while now. And so the Shining Snowflake, like our concept is really unique, and I believe it doesn't matter who you are. If you see yourself contributing to the Shining Snowflake one way or another, like definitely get in contact with us. Like just go on our website, www.theshiningsnowflake.com. View some of the things that we have done or what we plan to do and our pathways, and feel free to get in contact with us, and then we'll go from there.
All right. That's great. So the last section is around the action section. So this is some practical advice for the BLG listeners. So first one is around your number one personal productivity tip.
Okay. So my number one personal productivity tip would be and I heard this quote not too long ago, and how it goes is it says that those who are in a rush could have started yesterday. So, like there are times when we feel like we don't have enough time to do something, but then you could have started yesterday, which will mean, you have a little bit more time compared to if you started today and then, as you go on. So my number one personal productivity tip would be, when you want to do something, start it early. But the most important thing is to actually get started, because sometimes we tend to forget that even baby steps still move us forward. And so I'll just have to say, those who were in a rush could have started yesterday. That's my number one productivity tip.
And on apps, so if you look at your mobile phone, your home screen, etc., what are some of the key apps that you use to run this wonderful, complicated life?
So when I look at my phone, I'm actually, I'll just pick it up now. Most of the apps which I use, and I believe the number one which I really like is my online cloud. So there's different types. There's some Google Drive, there's some Dropbox, but I tend to use OneDrive by Microsoft.
Yes.
Yeah, and so for me, what that does is it means that I don't have to save, my files on my computer or a USB, and I can access it from anywhere, like on my mobile phone, like at uni, like with my cousins or with my friends' computer or tablet or whatever. So when I need to get something done, I'll just go on my OneDrive and then type something up and then edit it later on. Or maybe I can just get a copy from it. And so at the end of the day, nothing can get lost. But beside that, the other app which I really like to use is LinkedIn. And I believe that's how you and I connected as well.
Yes.
Yeah, because I believe LinkedIn has, like amazing powers, and the people that you meet there, like they're just amazing. You're amazing, Paul. Like you really are. And the fact that I met Pollyanna, who, referred me to you, like that's the power of LinkedIn. You don't know who you're gonna meet, and you don't know who they're gonna introduce you to. and you don't know what kind of opportunities will come out of that.
Very true. And I know for me, the mutual connections, I don't carry business cards anymore. And I'll just say to someone, let's connect on LinkedIn. And we do. And then often there'll be, 20, 30 people that we'll have mutual connections on. And, particularly in Australia, the degrees of separation are quite small. And, that's where getting you onto this show and getting you out there, that more people can find out more about what you're doing, and through LinkedIn can get in contact with you and share and help you drive your message. So the next is around books or podcasts. So what's your favorite book or podcast, and why?
So in regards to my books, I'm still reading some books which are really interesting, but one which I finished 2 days ago is by Sam Walton. So Sam Walton is the founder of Walmart, and Walmart is I think at the moment is considered to be the biggest company in the world. And so the book is called Made in America, and it talks about how Sam Walton was able to build a retail company from scratch, in the depression area, like in the depression era, when nothing was working his way. And so he started like building like small retail chains in little towns. But at the end of the day, it started getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And what that book does is it takes you through Sam Walton's journey. And so for me, like that's what I admire, like seeing people like at a certain stage and then wanting to know how they got from there to where they are now. So I have to say that book is really up there on my list. And the other book which I really enjoy and admire is a book called Influence. I don't know who. I actually forgot. I forgot the name of the individual who wrote it. But if you type up Influence book or something, it will pop up. And what I like about that book is the different ways of how you can influence individuals, or how individuals tend to influence you, and how you can, because sometimes people use influence in a positive or a negative way, and depending on who you are and depending on what their goal is, like you have to be careful and you have to be aware of the different influencing factors out there. And one story which I got from the book is, when a girl is at a bar, a guy may go up to her and then be like, "Can I buy you a drink?" And if the girl is to agree, then at the end of the day there will be an influencing factor where the girl will feel, like she owes something back to that individual. So it's called the reciprocal rule. So if you do something for one person, that individual will feel obligated to do something back to you in return. And you have to know how some people will be using it against you. And it's just really fascinating, and how sometimes you can use it to your advantage. And I believe you shouldn't really use that, in a negative way. But at times there are people who tend to use, influence for their own self benefit. And when people are using that against you or towards you, you have to be aware of it.
Excellent. Look, we'll put the links to the show notes to the book. It's Robert, and I can't pronounce his surname. I forget how to pronounce it.
Yes,
it's Cialdini or something like that.
Yeah, Cialdini, Robert Cialdini.
Yeah. Excellent. And you've had this wonderful career. Being an explorer in a refugee camp for 10 years, coming to Australia, a country didn't know any of the language. Now you're studying law and business, and most importantly, creating this Shining Snow Flake Foundation. You've had a brilliant career and life so far. What's some parting advice you'd like to give to the BLG listeners?
I will have to say, and I'm really humble. You summarized that. Sometimes I don't tend to see myself that way. I just I just like being humble, and I just like being appreciative of the opportunity that I have been given. And I believe that's what we need to do sometimes. Just appreciate like all that we had, because what you have now, or what you're complaining about at the moment, someone is praying for it. You know what I mean, Paul?
Yes.
Yeah. And so gratitude is really up there on my list. And also, I've been able to come, this far. I believe there's still a long way for me to go. This is just the warm up. My next goal is actually global domination.
Brilliant. Well, traveling the world. So last year I took a couple of months away with my family over in Europe, and just the amount of homelessness that I saw over there, and also here, so I made it more relevant here. I think it is a global problem, something that needs solving, and this little snowflake hopefully turns into a massive snowball that goes and does go global, and you leave a legacy, and will be proud that my kids can listen back in future generations, or my grandkids that can say, hey, Dad actually interviewed Fred once and heard his story when he was just at the beginning. So, look, it's brilliant to have you on the show. I really thank you for what you've done, not just for Australian society, but I think what you've done for a lot of people that are disadvantaged. I love what you're doing. I love what you're going to be doing, and we're here to support you, and it's great to have you in the community. I know you're not officially an ex-corporate person, but certainly the live and the give part of what we do, you have in spades. So thanks a lot, Fred, for coming on to this to the Bill Live Give show.
And definitely, thanks for having me again, Paul. It's been a really it's been a real pleasure, and I'm really grateful to be here as well. And I'm looking actually forward to hearing the stories of other amazing individuals who you're gonna interview, or who you're gonna have talks with. Because as much as I like talking, I like learning more. And so, actually, before we go, you've been asking me all of these questions, and I believe it will be essential for me to ask you a question in return.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, and my question is, because with what you're doing and where you came from, like you've had a long journey as well, and you've seen things which I haven't seen, and you have experienced things, in your business life or in your personal life. My question to you is, if you were in my shoes, right? If you're in my shoes with what I'm doing now, but you had all of your life experiences and your knowledge and all of your connection, what will you be doing differently? Or what will be the next step that you will take?
Yeah, look, great question. I think for me, the genuineness of you, and I just love that story you told about just taking that 5 minutes to understand someone's story. I think the more you tell stories like that, so the more you get in front of people and you get people to look and think about just taking that 5 minutes, I think that can make a real difference. So the short answer is, just keep doing what you're doing, I think is the key. You're a curious person by nature. You're an explorer. Just continue to do that. But I think a lot of what you've demonstrated today, you've already got what it takes. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you very much. And I'm humbled to hear that.
All right, excellent. Well, we'll leave it there now, Fred, and all the links will be in the show notes, and I can't wait for people to listen to your episode, leave some comments on the episode as well, and it's great having you on.
Yeah, and definitely. And if you're listening to this podcast, feel free to share it with your family members or your friends, because like I mentioned earlier, sometimes when we share our story, it may not inspire or impact the immediate individual, but it may impact another individual who listened to the podcast or watched the video, share it with. So at the end of the day, if you share it with your connections, you don't know who you're gonna inspire. And thank you again for having me. And I hope you have a lovely day.
Excellent. Great. Thanks, Fred.
Thank you for listening to the Build, Live, Give show. If you found this show helpful, please share it with others so we can build businesses, live great lives, and give back to the community. If you would like to join the BLG community, go to our website, www.buildlivegive.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.